Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My show is all about celebrating. It's about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists, celebrating whatever we can find to celebrate in these dark days. They're really light if you try to find them. I believe that if we take the time to celebrate, we can celebrate. And today we are going to celebrate because today is the birthday of James Beaman. Now, James, we are getting a little bit of an echo here. So if you've got another device open or something, you may want to turn that off.
Okay.
Okay. Something is bringing that. If you're watching me on
be my little speaker.
Your little speaker's bringing me back. So turn that off. There it goes.
Good.
Anyway, it is your birthday.
Yes.
Today is also, we are in the midst of a nor'easter. But I've always been told that if it rains on your birthday, if it rains on opening night, if it rains on a wedding day, it's always good luck.
Okay.
In addition to celebrating your birthday, what are you celebrating these days?
I think, all of us have been brought down to basics. We've been brought down to our common moment to moment life. I'm celebrating being here with you. We've known each other such a long time. I'm celebrating being well and being housed and being surrounded by love. I've had so much love thrown at me today on my birthday, and there's been such an isolating thing for all of us in the past year and a half. And so I'm celebrating the fact that we're here, in that play, The Lion in Winter, that play. Mm-hmm. And they made a movie with Peter O'Toole, Katharine Hepburn. And at the end of the movie, she's despairing and she says, there's everything in life but hope. And he says, we're still alive. And for all I know, that's what hope is.
Absolutely. And you and I, we have known each other a long time. We've known each other since 1993, which seems like it was yesterday. And we're going to talk about that in a few moments. But I was doing a lot of research on your history. I learned things about you that I did not know. There's the old adage, being born in a trunk. You truly were born in the trunk. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize to the extent that your parents were so engrossed in the theater. If you can tell us a little bit about your parents and the life that you were actually born into.
Well, if I was going to be destined to be a performer, I couldn't have chosen better parents. My parents met at Carnegie Tech, which became Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, mm-hmm. And they met in the theater department. My father was getting his master's degree as a set designer and scenic artist. And my mother started there as an actress, but it was old school, like dress you down, tear you apart, bullying style of acting training. And she was a sensitive person. She had lived her whole life in a multi-generational home in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and, as the only girl, and she was a good Jewish girl. But she also, by that time, she had been studying with Martha Graham since she was 10. She studied with Sanford Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse as a young kid. So she was already doing theater, and they met in theater school, and they became kind of the Noel and Gertie of their class. They were sort of an item, and they got married right out of school. And stayed in Pittsburgh while my dad worked. And he designed the first set for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which was done at Pittsburgh local public television. They had my brother, they had me. And then my dad took the job that he did for the rest of his career as an associate professor at Boston University. And he trained generations of designers, including Eugene Lee and Chris Ackerland, and Michael Downs, and many people who went on to have great careers. And my mom, when I was 10, opened her own business in our hometown of Massachusetts, an acting studio and dance studio and her own little company. And it was little grassroots theater. And it was a place for me to go after school and sing and dance and do shows. And it was a home. And my friends were adult actors, so I come by it honestly, I think.
Well, I want to show a picture here. This is, did I bring in the picture here? I do have this photograph of you. I'm going to find this here. This is a photograph of you as, how old are you in this picture? That I asked.
5 years old.
You're 5 years old.
Yeah.
You haven't changed a bit.
Oh,
you look exactly the same. Tell us a little bit about this little boy, because I always ask James to see the 5-year-old self, because to me, the 5-year-old self, I believe, is the purest self. I think it's the self before school starts. I mean, obviously, if you grow up in a theater background, you are many years ahead of most people at 5 years old. You see things at 5 years old that most people won't see in a lifetime, let's face it. But it's before you start school. It's before the peer pressure of other students gets layered on you, and teachers, let's face it. Teachers start defining who you should be and who you should not be. We are living in a different world right now where teachers are starting to be a little bit more open as to what little boys and girls should or should not be. But it was a different world when you and I were growing up. So who was James Beaman at 5 years old?
Well, he was Jamie. In my family, he's always been Jamie. He was a little precocious child. My parents, we had just moved to Massachusetts. My parents bought a house. It was an old 19th century house, and my father did all the work on it. My father could do anything. He could build anything. He could paint anything. So we were in our new home. My sister had been adopted a year before. So I had a little sister, and my brother's 4 years older than I. My brother and I are like left brain, right brain split, like almost exactly. He's a wonderful guy and a wonderful father and husband, and a brilliant mathematical scientific mind. He's a senior software engineer for Apple now. He's made good on that. And I was a little creative child. My father was always doing artwork. I wanted to be just like him. I was surrounded by paints and drawing and drafting because he was a set designer and he had just started teaching at BU. And my mother really wanted to embrace his students. In fact, a few years back, I went, and this is funny, actually, that I'm thinking of this. A few years ago, I got to play like my dream role of John Adams in 1776, which is something I was like, I'm going to play this part. And I got to do it at the Cape Playhouse in Dennis, Massachusetts. And it turned out that the guy who was designing the set was a student of my father's in his very first class in 1969. And he walked up to me and he said, I knew you when you were 5 years old.
Here we are.
Your mother had us, all of us students in your dad's first class, up to Beverly. We lived on the North Shore of Boston, and she made us food, and we sat around and talked, and she was so cool. And you were just this little curious, like little wide-eyed little kid, and I'll never forget that day and how kind your parents were to embrace us like that and make us welcome. And it was that kind of house. It was that kind of house. My mother was way ahead of her time. When I was little, she was teaching modern dance at the local kindergarten. and my sister was adopted at 6 months old, and she was interracial, which was kind of a big deal, especially in suburban Boston. in 1969 and 1970. And so she was the only brown person really for miles. And that was tough for her. But for me, all I remember is I've got this great little like magical sister now, you know? And we were kind of an oddball family, but I just felt like, you know, we didn't have a lot, but I never felt like we didn't have stuff. And I felt like there was so much creativity and all of the tools to do things and make things. And we had books everywhere and music. My father collected LPs, so I was surrounded by music of all different kinds. It was a great, great beginning for a little precocious little artist kid.
So you started, you know, dabbling, is that the right word, in the theater, but your debut was in Shakespeare. Am I correct?
Well, kind of. Yeah, I mean, I was just this little, I mean, it was ridiculous. My mother loved to tell stories about me. They were in first grade. We did a play called The Little Brown Bear. And apparently I was the best read of all the kids. So I was the narrator. And I created a character for the narrator. And I put a little hat on and a little vest, and I stood up on a chair and I held my little book and I narrated the thing. So, and she went, oh boy, here we go. And my father worked at BU. And when I was 12, the senior class that year was doing a main stage production of King John by Shakespeare. And there's a really, really big part for a kid in that play, Arthur. And he's very dramatic and he has like a death scene. It's fantastic. And so I auditioned with a bunch of other faculty brats and I got the part. And for me, it was the big time. And these students were just amazing, and the costumes and the sets and being on this big stage. And I had to do this death drop from this tower and fall in these people's arms and die. It was like fantastic. And that was the year, I think my 12th year was the year I just got bit by the bug. And performing on that stage, you know, I'm sure they all thought I was like a little brat. But for me, it was like, this is my place. And that was the year that we used to go for school field trips to North Shore Music Theater, which back then, it's in the round, still there. I've worked there a bunch. I love it there. But at that time, I think it was still under a tent. And maybe not, but it was, I was 12 and we were taken there for a school matinee of Peter Pan. And Tova Feldcha played Peter Pan.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And she was famous because she had just done Holocaust, miniseries Holocaust. And she was a big deal. And George Rose played Captain Hook. And I'm a little 12-year-old. And out comes George Rose being carried on the litter by the pirates. And they let him down and he started his performance and he was this big. And he was like, ah! He like took the world. You know what I mean? He just, ah! And I went, that is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
And you did.
And 40 years later,
you got to do it.
Captain Hook on that stage.
On that very stage.
Magic.
Yes.
Some things are meant to be. I think I was meant to do this.
Yes. Well, as Carol Channing's father used to say, be careful what you wish for. You will surely attain it. So you are in this world. You're growing up in this world. You've got these wishes, these dreams. But what was the experience for you when you went to your parents and you said, Mom, Dad, I think this is really what I want to do with my life?
Well, it's funny because I never really had to have that conversation with them. My parents split up when I was 10. And shortly thereafter, my mother was about turning 40. And she was one of those women. She was like Ellen. She was, what was that movie? An Unmarried Woman. You know, like she was such like a pioneering 40-year-old woman. Like, I'm going to make my own business. And she was taking care of 3 kids and a house and supporting a mortgage. And
she wasn't a victim. She was an empowered woman.
She wanted to do work. And she wanted to help. My mother has always fostered creative people, and she saw in them what they didn't see in themselves. And a lot of the people who worked with her back then have gone on to have great careers, really great. We just actually, I visit her in the nursing home every week. And we had a chat with her star, pupil, and actress at her company. That company was called the Acting Place, Inc. And this actress is a woman named Dossie Peabody. And Dossie became one of Israel Horovitz's core actors. and she was in the original production of his play Key Exchange in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And she went on to become this like award-winning Boston actress, and now she's a teacher and a coach herself. So, I mean, my mom was like, yes. The one thing my mother didn't want to do was to take me out and make me into a professional child. She didn't want to do that. And I wanted it really bad. Mm-hmm. The first Broadway show I saw was Annie. And I saw 13-year-old Andrea McArdle like starring. I wanted to be a star. I thought I was a star.
You were.
I mean, when I was a kid, I listened to Judy Garland. I was a member of the Jimmy Osmond fan club. I was obsessed with Michael Jackson, who was a little boy, Jackson 5. I was like, I want to be a star. And my mom was like, no, I want you to mature. I want you to develop your craft. And I want you to have a long adult career.
Well, I have to ask you because I was the same kid. And I just have to ask you, what was your sister and your brother thinking about you as you were saying, I'm a star, I'm going to be a star?
I mean, my brother and I did not get along. We had to share a room, and we were like,
you're telling my story.
Oh yeah, we did. I mean, when we were kids, we had a playroom on the same floor as our bedrooms. And my father had to convert it into a bedroom for me because we just could not be in the same room. My little sister, she was when she was a kid, she was very sort of shy, and she was very sort of, soft, but she was the jock. My sister did sports. She was obsessed with horseback riding, and she took horseback riding lessons. And she was the kind of the get out there and do stuff. And I was putting on shows in my bedroom and like acting out songs. And I had a little toy theater that my father put together for me, one of those like old 19th century things with all the little scenery. And I would like tell the family, after dinner tonight, I have a show. When they come up to my room, I gotta have a show. And you know what I would do? I would like put together a tableau with like characters and like things, and I'd have the curtain. And I was obsessed with Disney. I don't know if you were, but I was a member of the Disney fan club, and I had all the records, the LPs for like Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. So I would set up like a scene from Snow White or something. They'd all come, they'd gather, they'd sit in front of this theater. I'd turn the music on and the lights on the stage click. And then I would bring the curtain up, and there'd be this lovely tableau, and the music would play. And they'd go, is that it? I'd be like, yeah, that's it. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? But I was never discouraged in the home from
incredible.
Expressing myself, because in school I was getting the crap beaten out of me.
Yeah,
I really was. I had a very traumatic time in public school.
Yeah.
Anything different.
But it was the theater that was your safe haven.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That's why, and those of us who are in the business, we know how important arts and education is, because it's a safe haven for so many kids. But you forged on, you ended up getting your BFA at Boston University.
Yes.
And then, I don't know if you want to go there or not. You know what I'm talking about?
What?
The impersonation years.
Oh, no, of course.
Okay. Because, it's funny. There was an article that was written about myself years ago when I was in Provincetown, and they referred to me as the reluctant impersonator. And they called me that because it wasn't a career path that I chose. It was like it sucked me in. And I somehow believe, I could be wrong, that it somehow did the same thing to you.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I came out in acting school at BU, where I was still a faculty brat. Mm-hmm. So they kind of had like in for me from the beginning. And I left high school 2 years early because I was being really kind of traumatized. And I went to Simon's Rock, which is a great school in the Berkshires. It's a campus college for high school age students. And I got an associate's degree in the time I would have gotten my high school diploma. And I was there with all of these brilliant misfits. And my roommate at Simon's Rock was John McWhorter, who is now this incredible, like world famous linguist. And he speaks 12 languages. He's just this extraordinary person. So that's where I came from. And I went to BU. And I came out in 1984, and I got punished for it at acting school. I and the other two men in my class who decided people are dying of AIDS, and I'm going to be an activist, and I'm not going to live in the shadows, and I'm going to be myself, and I'm still going to have a career, which they told me I would not. And so I was already kind of like, I'm going to be, and you didn't do that. People were getting outed. That was the time when people, like, years later, I worked with Richard Chamberlain and sat with him over dinner, and he told me when he was outed in the 80s by this, he was one of the first people who was outed in this Asian magazine, and he was shattered by it. He had spent his whole career constructing this, he was the shirt ripper romantic, hero. Anyway, I came out of Boston. I came to New York too soon, experienced club life, but didn't make much progress as an actor, and went back to Boston. My mother was running the Boston Children's Theatre at that time, and I taught for her and I worked with her. And I worked in the professional theater in Boston. And I was doing a production of Grease, playing the teen angel. Mm-hmm. And one of the actors in the show was a cabaret director, quite brilliant, eccentric guy. And we were at cast party, and I used to do an impersonation of Lauren Bacall's high.
Brilliant.
And it was stupid to me that Lauren Bacall drinks decaf, really. And so I was like, decaf, and he was like, oh my God, you have to do Lauren Bacall. And I was like, I'm not doing drag. I've already been picked on for just being gay. I'm going to do drag at 24, whatever the hell age I was. I'm like, no, it's going to kill me. I can't. But he kept coming at me, and the ideas were so funny. And I thought, you know what? I've never backed down from a fight, Richard, as you know. Mm-hmm. I feel like, and we're in a time now where people are questioning and challenging prejudices and prejudgments of things and saying no. Mm-hmm. And what I did was I was like, okay, I want to be a character actor. My idols were people like Laurence Olivier and Lon Chaney, and they did their own makeup and they transformed. And sometimes Laurence Olivier came on stage and you're like, where's Laurence Olivier? And that's what I thought an actor was. So I was like, this is the ultimate transformation. Mm-hmm. I'm going to cross the gender line. I'm going to be an actual person. I'm going to do her voice and her gist. I have to know everything. And I'm a research. You are too. I'm like a research-aholic. I want to know everything there is to know. And so I did the show, and it just took on a life of its own. But if it weren't for that act, I wouldn't have come to New York, and I wouldn't have done Whoop-De-Doo, which was the.
Well, that's what I want to talk about, because it was that act that brought you to New York. Yeah. Whoop-De-Doo, you understudied 8 actors.
9.
9, sorry.
All of them. And I was the assistant stage manager.
Yes.
For $350 a week.
And, and then, which led, of course, to When Pigs Fly, Marlene Dietrich. I have to tell everyone, hysterical story. You and I were performing on the Intrepid. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, I do.
But someone took a photograph in front of one of the speakers, and it sounded like a bomb went off on the ship. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And everybody, you were the only one dressed as Marlene Dietrich, glamorous to the hilt. You didn't flinch, and you said, I worked during the war, and and it was one of the funniest moments that I think I have ever experienced everywhere. And it was one of the funny, just hysterical. You started winning all these awards and everything. I bring this up because you eventually said no more. I mean, as brilliant as you were in this, and same thing, for both of us, there came a time where it was time to close the closet door, so to speak. What was the deciding factor for you? And I want to talk about moving beyond that, because I have seen you in several productions since then. And I'm not saying this. I wanted you to come on tonight because you are a brilliant actor and you're a brilliant director. And you deserve the accolades that you're getting. We're going to see some of your work in a moment. But what was the deciding factor? Because you were at the top of your game as Marlene Dietrich, Black Market Marlena,
Yes.
your concert Marlena, all of these shows you had, and you could have gone anywhere with them.
Well,
you decided to, well,
that's part of the reason that it didn't happen. And I won't go into all of the factors. There was a lot of misunderstanding about what I was doing when I gave my farewell performance as Marlene in the cabaret community. And a lot of people thought I was going, thumbing my nose at cabaret. That's not what happened. What happened was in 2001, after 9/11, I was working in retail as a freelance makeup artist at Henry Bendel. I was making good money, but I was extra help. I had no job security. And the bottom fell out of the retail market at Christmas. And I walked in one day during the holidays and they said, go home. No more job. And I was in debt because I'd been producing cabaret acts on a credit card. And it was like bankrupting me, you know, prior to that happening, because it's very expensive, you know, and if you want to do it right, you know, it costs. And I had a band, a 4-piece band at that time, and they got paid. And I had top of the line costumes and furs and all that. But my goal was to take Black Market Marlena in a tux, and Café de Paris, Marlena Glamour, 1950s, and make a double bill theater piece out of it. That was always the intent. And then, as fate would have it, Sean Phillips came to Broadway in Pam James's play Marlena, and she was wonderful in it, but the play flopped and it lost money. And all the people who were interested in financing my Marlena piece went, no one wants to see Marlena, and they ran for the hills. And I was like, I can't keep doing this forever, because it really, as you know, I think that kind of impersonation where you really have to kind of transform is a young man's game. We thicken as we get older. And I was skinny, and I couldn't work out because I wore skin tight like dresses. And I mean, my life had to be ready to do this show. The makeup took 2 hours and the show took an hour. You know, it was a lot of work, and I was working towards a goal, and the goal wasn't going to happen. And I thought, I am the best at this I'm ever going to be. And I'm going to go out on a high. And I did one night of the show that I planned to do at Judy's with dinner, and everybody was so wonderful, and it's caught on film. I've got it. Thank God. And yeah, I mean, I need to pick up the pieces and just move on. I declared bankruptcy, and then I took a part-time job working at the Museum of Sex. During its first, I managed the weekends at the Museum of Sex. And I was like, what am I going to do next? I'd love to go back to school, because I really didn't have like a super positive experience in undergrad. I'd like to get my master's degree. And I always wanted to do Shakespeare and classical work and just really deepen my skills and my knowledge. And I found out about the Academy for Classical Acting at the George Washington University in DC through the Shakespeare Theatre. It's a 1-year master's degree. And I thought, well, I can get 1 year at 38 years old. I don't think I can do 3. And I went and auditioned, and they accepted me on the spot. And I said, I can't afford to go. I'm bankrupt. And they found me money.
I want to ask you a question, though, going back for a moment. You decided to move on.
Yeah.
Was it easy for other people to let go of that and let you move on?
They didn't understand.
Because I will tell you something. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, and I'll bring up a sore point right now. As you and I are sitting here talking, and we'll toast to them.
Who? The ladies who continue?
Tonight, well, the ladies who continue, we applaud all of them.
They're great.
They are great. But
Coco
tonight,
Peru,
yes,
Lip Sync, those people are
that's
still
not
working.
where I was going to go. But
Okay,
tonight is the first night of the cabaret convention, so let's toast to them.
Cheers.
Cheers to them. But I will also say that you, it's been 20 years. It's been almost. I think it's been a long time since I've done it. I'm trying to think. It's been over 15 years since I last appeared as Carol, and there are still people who still think that I do it.
Yep. And they always will.
And
And that's okay.
And that's okay. And it's like trying to move on beyond that.
You are.
Still, who still think that that's all I do.
I know. But it's part of your legacy, and it's part of the fullness of a very diverse career. I am proud of all of that work. I made it myself. I directed myself. I promoted myself. I found these incredible musicians. We collaborated together. They worked for me for free. I was lit by Matt Berman. I mean, people saw my show. I was taken to Berlin. I performed as Marlene Dietrich on the eve of the millennium in Berlin. I mean, come on. What more am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? It's like, and since then, and because of all that work, I still do drag roles. I did The Legend of Georgia McBride 2 years ago in Arkansas, wonderful play, Matthew Lopez, who wrote The Inheritance, and did the drag. And then the show I was doing when COVID hit down at beautiful Riverside Theater in Florida, I was playing Albana La Cage aux Folles in a huge, lavish, gorgeous production, stunning production. And we played 8 shows and we closed. So, but I got to the end. I'm telling you, Richard, it really is a young man's game. God bless these diehard ladies who just keep on trucking. Because I'm going to tell you, I mean, 11 costume changes.
I know.
Makeup changes, heels, corsets. I mean, and I'm not I'm not Tugboat Annie exactly, but I'm certainly not the slip of the girl I was when I played Zaza the first time in 2007. And I'm not going to do it again. I'm too old.
Well, I want to ask, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Davis Gaines, and he said, being in this business, he said, it's like being in a pinball game. You know what you want to do, you want to go, and then he said, and it's like you are knocked from side to side because of circumstances. A perfect example is the last year and a half, COVID. What did your life look like when, you talk about being, you're doing Zaza, and then all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from underneath you. You're a very ambitious person. I know you are. How have you mapped out a career for yourself? And let's talk about the bumps along the way. And how do you manage to get through those obstacles yourself? And what keeps you motivated and what keeps you going?
Well, where I'm at right now, I won't. I'll talk about that in a moment and not dwell too much in it. But we've all been in this space of uncertainty, and everybody had some kind of incredibly difficult circumstance to work through, and I did too. And it was the darkest and hardest time of my life, and I'm still not recovered from that. And I haven't worked in my profession since La Cage, and that was March of 2020. I just started auditioning again. I don't have the same, gotta get out there and get it, and I realized that I spent the last decade either working half the year in regional theater, doing great shows, great parts, or being here, tightening the belt, getting on the hamster wheel, and hustling. I didn't have a personal life. I couldn't keep a plant alive. I couldn't visit my family. I just lived to work, get those health weeks, keep that health insurance going. And I don't regret it. I'm not complaining. It's what I chose. But when you get that perspective of none of us are doing this. So, it's this thing I say to a lot. I work as a coach now, and I say to a lot of my actors, you are not what you do. And we were taught that in order to have the passion and the commitment to be an artist or to be an actor, that's who you are. You are an actor. Well, if you're not acting, what are you? You're you. And you have to be in the fullness and the darkness and the light and the uncertainty of being a human, and it will feed your work. I have great work ahead of me. I know I do, but I'm not in this like, I gotta work. I'm not. I've looked into the abyss,
But is it the past year and a half that changed you?
Kind of. Yeah. I I determined I came to a crossroads about 10 years ago. I came back from the national tour of Spamalot, which was an incredible experience, the first national of that. And I closed the original production as the last Sir Robin original production. And I made all this money, and I went to 62 cities in North America. And I worked with Gary Beach and Richard Chamberlain, John O'Hurley, and like amazing people. And I thought,
And they worked with you.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And they were great to me, really great, especially Gary, may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
He was my idol. And he went out of his way to be my friend. He was a beautiful person. And I mean, and whatever, but I was still that kid who was a star. And I had decided, because I was up against a lot of adversity. You know, people didn't want me to live in public school. Okay, never mind succeed. And then I get to the college where I grew up. I grew up washing paint buckets while my dad painted sets for the student productions at BU as a child. And I was told, you will never work in this profession if you don't hide the fact that you're gay. It was a betrayal. And then they punished us by not casting us in anything. And when they did a gay play, they would cast the straight actors. So I came out of BU like this. I'll show you. Like that. And I stayed that way for the next 10 years. And it's untenable. And it forced me, I was caught in the perfectionist trap, which is a horrible trap that I don't recommend. It makes you crafted. It makes you knowledgeable. It makes you fight. I was somebody that people respected and didn't like very much. I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was going to places like Goodspeed. I did 2 shows at Goodspeed the first season I was there. And the second one, I was in the ensemble of How to Succeed. And I realized they weren't going to give me a lead part because I didn't have Broadway credits. And I was surrounded by people who had Broadway. And I was like, this isn't fair. I should have gone from Spamalot to Broadway. And it didn't happen. And I was starting to get angry. And I was starting to be like, I'm not happy. And I'm not making people happy. And what am I going to do about that? And I thought, you know what? You got to revision your childhood dream. And I said, I want to be a leading character actor. I'm not doing ensemble. I'm not understudying people. I've done that, and I'm a good sport. I really am. But I'm going to play leads in great shows. And I got to play Thénardier and Nathan Detroit and John Adams and all these parts. And every time I worked in a great theater in a show, the rest of the principal cast had Broadway credits, all of them. But I was playing the character lead. I was doing what I set out to do. We get so caught up in things that don't matter, and they pass. I used to live, may she also rest in peace, God, here at Manhattan Plaza. Jan Maxwell was my neighbor for 17 years.
God bless her.
Jan Maxwell, to me, was the epitome of both. She was like Marion Seldes to me. She was the epitome of a star and a craftswoman, an artist who I admired. She was a 7-time Tony Award nominee, never won. What? And she was so down to earth and so lovely to me. And we would bump into each other at the elevator on our way down to whatever we were going to do. And I was in awe of her. And this is a great story. And I tell this to my actors all the time as students. She had just done Follies on Broadway and been nominated for a Tony. And I went to see it. And she was just, she was phenomenal. Could do anything.
Absolutely.
She could do anything, any dialect, any kind of theater. She could sing, dance. I worshiped her. I really did. And we were there, and she was on her way. They closed on Broadway, and they were on their way to LA to the Mark Taper Forum and to perform out there for a limited run. And I said, well, what's after that? And she said, and I went, what? And she looked me in the eye, and she put her hand on my shoulder. I'll never forget this. Thank you. And she said, Jamie, it's not a ladder. And I went, because right now, we're in this time where we're questioning the stories, the lore, the structural vision of what success means in every area of America. And it was stuff that was perpetuated by Hollywood and perpetuated by, a system that's about elitism. It's about climbing the ladder to success and the legend of the girl. There's one Sutton Foster, like there was one Shirley MacLaine, and, the star ain't going to break her ankle every time, and you're going to become a, rocket to stardom. And I realized it's about, I have to contribute work that means something to me and that matters to others. It's not about me, it's about them. And I was blessed to be brought up with a knowledge of the legacy of theater and of musical theater. I know stuff. My friend Alita calls me the encyclopedia. That's a gift that I not only was given, but that I gave myself. And if I don't give that back by just being great at what I do and not trying to prove anything, because you get to a certain point, don't you, Richard, where you're like, I'm not going to prove anything. I don't got nothing to prove to people.
No, I wish that the world could hear what you're saying right now, because, I teach, I have a book group, and, someone who is so known in the New York City cabaret community, and I hope she watches this, just this past week, lamenting where she fits in. And I always say, put your blinders on and stay in your lane.
That's right.
It's
not about where you fit in. It's about continuing to be true to yourself and do what you do and do it the best you can. And I encourage my students all the time, don't buy into these ideas that if you conform and you do a nasal belt and you wear the right laducas and you whatever, toe the line, that it's just going to fly open for you.
And that's going to change tomorrow. It's going to change tomorrow.
That's right. And they fed that to you at conservatory. And some casting director you paid for a workshop. I'm not disparaging people. I've learned things in casting director. There's some amazing people out there. But what I'm saying is each individual who talks to you about what the business wants will say something different. Right. Barbra Streisand didn't care what was happening in the business. They didn't have parts for her, so she did her own act. And then they wrote a part for her. I'm just saying, for some people, it's going to be harder. Or it's going to be, you may have to grow into yourself. It took me, my one acting teacher who believed in me in college, and he was the one that people didn't take seriously because he was old and eccentric, but he had been there, done that. And he was still a working actor, old man. And he said to me, Jamie, you're a character actor. And I looked like a child. I mean, I looked 16. I was like this little twink with like curly hair. And I was bitter and angry, And he said, you're a character actor and you're not going to really work until you're 40. And when you're 20, you don't want to hear that. But he was right. You cannot be truly creative and truly inspired and truly fulfilled, because really you're not going to work a lot in general. Jan Maxwell doesn't know what her next gig is after Follies on Broadway. What the hell? That's the business, y'all. And now we've been given a gift. See, here's the thing. This last year almost killed me. It really did. It tested everything, every bit of optimism. And I'm an optimist. I really am. And I've overcome adversity, as have you, as have many people. And there's always a gift in there. Always. And we've been given a collective gift. We had to stop. And in theater, we 100% unemployment. Mm-hmm. It all got taken away. There was no hierarchy, And of course, when things came back, Broadway's coming back. Okay, Broadway's coming back for the 1% that have those jobs, and it's great. And I live in New York. We need that tourism, and do it. Make it. And they're doing plays. All the new plays are by African-American playwrights, and they're about the African-American experience. And it's super exciting and great. And the theater's doing a lot of things right. But Broadway's not the theater. And I'm sorry. And we've got to stop having stars in our eyes because the odds are against you, no matter what. And that area, I mean, if you really want that, go get those Ludukas, but you better be able to kick higher and sing louder. It's such a narrow lane. And if you're special and you're different, don't complain. See, this is the problem I have. Okay. People are questioning gender norms. They're questioning the roles of women and men, and they're looking, they don't want to really do the work of really understanding history, which would take a lot of time and study and nuance and learning and conversation that can't be done on Twitter. And nobody wants to do that. But they want to take ownership of this reinvention. We are going to get rid of the patriarchy, and we are going to tear down systemic racism and sexism. Blah. Oh, you are? Really? You're not. You're not going to do it by making old white guys like me feel like it's our fault. And you're not going to do it by not having a sense of humor about yourself. Okay? I don't know anybody who was different, who didn't take a risk. You have to take a risk. You cannot tell people, I'm not comfortable, and therefore you all must call me this, and you must make a safe space for me. If I had done that in the 80s as a homosexual, how do you think that would have worked out? You have to be your truth. You have to give something to the world. I'm sorry if you think you're entitled and that you shouldn't have to give something to get something. But guess what? You do. And in the process, think about the people out there who were you a few years back, or me, broken, oddball, not knowing, wanting, being told no, you don't belong. And you just move right through there with your own energy and your own truth and your own positivity about what you do. Standing there and going, I'm this now. You know what, guys? I'm sorry. I mean, I love that. And I think that's great. And I agree. Gender and identity is a ever-faceted rainbow. But guess what? People still aren't comfortable with male and female. And they're not comfortable with gay. And they're not comfortable with trans. And those people are getting legislated against in government. Fight for those people. Fight for those people. And wear what you want to wear and express yourself however you want to express yourself. And stop expecting other people to fall in line. They're not going to. They will, though, when they understand you. That requires strength and generosity. And every person I've ever known who was different risked being vulnerable. I knew Quentin Crisp at acquaintance. You remember Quentin?
I had dinner with him. Yes.
I mean, Quentin Crisp was an eccentric, but let's face it. This guy walked around London with makeup and hennaed hair and nail polish in broad daylight.
But he lived his authentic self.
Yes.
He did not, I remember we had dinner with him, and he was, the waiter kept referring to him as ma'am. We kept correcting the waiter, and he said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not an issue with me. It's not an issue. It didn't bother him.
Yeah.
It was not an issue.
I'm not, and here's the thing. I know I'm going to sound kind of like I'm like on young people's exploration of gender. And look, you're right. Women, we live in a society that was founded on male domination and violence and genocide. I mean, let's face it. We were a branch of the British Empire, and the British Empire wreaked havoc on the known world. They sacked the Holy Land and tried to convert everybody. And if they couldn't convert them, they killed them. Okay, let's face it. I'm not, and my roots are in the British Isles on my father's side. But my point is, we have to understand our history.
We absolutely do.
Don't you think?
we're going to run out of time.
Okay.
And I want to show some of your work.
Okay.
And then we're going to show some of your work, and then we're going to wrap up here for just a moment.
Great.
So, but here you are.
Okay.
So here you
Now,
are.
this is the small amount of television film I've done.
12 years old. And alone.
I already read it like 3 times.
Thank you.
I don't know how you did it, but it just keeps getting better.
Well, y'all keep reading now, and 4th time's the charm.
You had such a hard life, Bobby.
Well, it's, the only one I know.
This is very bold, and I feel like our client is a lot more conservative than this.
Okay.
And I feel like it's going to be very difficult to rein all of this in for them.
Yeah, like if I can show you one
Yeah,
poster.
no, I know what you were going for. I get it. But I just feel like it's a little all over the place. And I feel like your cultural references, you know, the Buddha images, I think that's really sensitive of you, but I feel like they're a little literal right now.
Okay,
You have to-
because you do see them a
I know
lot.
you do,
And
I know you do, but in this particular project, in general, I just feel that this is a bit naive. I'm really sorry about this, but I'm gonna have to put this one over into Emily's department, okay?
okay.
Who are you?
I am Lisa. Who are you?
I'm Clay's uncle. I live here. Where's Clay?
He's in the shower.
You're with Clay?
I am with Clay.
He paying you?
No. I love him.
Killed by a cyborg.
I want to see more.
You know, you do what you gotta do.
Right. Oh my God. Oh,
The second piece was Linnea, the actress I was working with, is a good friend of mine, and she and her partner Johan at the time wrote that film for themselves, got it produced and shot in Thailand mostly, and gave me that lovely scene to do, and that was all improvised. It was one take.
Incredible. Well, before we run out of time, this is my little homage to James Lipton inside the Actors Studio. He always ended his show with his questions. These are not his questions. These are just some random questions that I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
And I'm going to start with this. What is the best example of perfection that you can think of?
Oh, God. That's such a loaded question for me. What's perfection? Perfection is standing in uncertainty and being kind to other people, getting your attention off yourself and into whatever that means, because you are not in control of anything but what you put out into the world.
Wow.
That's perfection to me. That's as close as we're going to get.
I think great answer. In what way are you least understood?
Oh, God. I think I have crafted a sort of social media image of being like, really, I got this, you know, and I try to be extremely positive. You know, I used to be very cranky on social media. I quit Twitter. It was too triggering for me. And I always rose to the bait and got, you know, I want to contribute something that's uplifting and positive. But I think a lot of times people and colleagues and friends think that I am like, no problem, you know, and it's far from that. It's not that that part is untrue. and I shared a lot of what I went through over the pandemic because I had my mother living with me for 5 months in a 1-bedroom under lockdown, and she has Alzheimer's disease. And it was, and I overshared on Facebook, but people stepped forward to help me, and truly, she's where she needs to be because of that. So I guess the thing people misunderstand about me is that Jamie Beaman's got it. Whatever, always working and da-da-da-da. I'm like, you know what? I gotta make you feel that way. And it's nice that you feel that way, but that's not 100%.
Wow. Who is the person that you miss most right now?
I miss the mother that I knew, who was my biggest fan, and my friend and confidant and my teacher and my mom. I miss her because there are little scraps of her there, but I miss her.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. What is the best vacation that you ever took?
Ooh, well, you mentioned Matt Berman before. Wonderful Matt Berman. Matt Berman used to do this thing where he's a sun worshiper, or at least he was. I don't know. But he would, on his time off in the summer, is he still?
Yeah.
In his time off in the summer, he would go somewhere fabulous in Europe, and he would get a house, and he would set up house, and he would let his friends know that if they could get there, they have a place to stay, and he'll pay for food, and you'll be able to be there with him. And he went to the south of France, and my ex and I and Karen Mason and her husband Paul, the four of us flew to Nice with backpacks and showed up at Matt's house, and it was a house with a pool, and it was lovely, and we tootled around the Côte d'Azur and went to Saint-Tropez and went all these places, and it was beautiful. And Matt, this is something that I'm growing into my maturity, wanting to accomplish, to share the goodness with people and just lay out a table for people. I think that's such a generous thing to do. He's such a good guy. That was a great.
I love him. Well, he's responsible for my lighting, so I love him for that.
I know how good that lighting can be.
Yeah, that's great. What is the one non-monetary thing that you have the highest hope of obtaining in life?
Non-monetary. I would like, there's a famous quotation. It's misquoted. People say Edwin Booth, the great actor, said it, but it's not. I forget who it is. It doesn't matter. The quote is, an actor is a sculptor who carves in snow. And I would like to get to a point now that I'm, in my Clooney years, where I can do some stuff on film. And I've been writing. I wrote a 6-episode season of a series that I conceived that helped me to sort of channel all of these crazy things I've been going through the past year and a half. I would like something that lasts. Theater is wonderful, and I love it, and I will always do theater. But it's, and it lives in someone's memory. And my mom is losing her memory, and she saw 80% of everything I did. She flew to Berlin. My mother's afraid of flying, and when you realize that, it is so ephemeral, and you look at the younger generation, they don't care. I had a young person, I'm sorry, I don't mean to beat up on the young people, but they need to kind of get a spine, a real one. And somebody said to me the other day, golden age of Broadway. What's a golden age of Broadway musical? Les Miserables. That was 1986. You know what I mean? So you must be curious. And you must look and reach out and find the knowledge of that legacy, because it just doesn't, we can't go back and see Lorette Taylor do Glass Menagerie. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I'd like to do some stuff on film because I'm a film person. I'm an old movie thing. And they made a lot of mistakes in Hollywood that have hurt minorities and stuff. We know this. But something that has a life. I see these movies and I think, you will live forever. You will live forever. And somebody will find it. Even if it's this small performance in this small film, some dork is going to find it. And it might change their life. I would like that. Something that feels like it might have some permanence.
Now, this is an interesting question. What is the dirtiest place that you've ever been to?
Dirt, like hygienically dirty, or what kind of dirty are we talking about?
No, anything you want to say, and keep it PC. My mom may be watching.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, dirtiest place. I guess, Berlin is, the gay scene in Berlin is kind of a dark environment.
Okay.
It's aromatic. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And I'll leave it there.
And when do you love yourself the most?
When do I love myself the most? When I'm doing something, when I'm working with an artist, as a director, as a coach, and it's what my mother always did, and she was so good at it. She would see how people were getting in their own way, and instead of saying, she would say, "Do this," and you don't have a chance to. And when I see myself facilitating people stepping into something that they didn't know they could do, and seeing them be terrified of it, and also just like, oh my God. To me, we are so sort of beaten down, and we're so self-critical, and we want to be prettier, we want to be skinnier, we want to be blah, 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 blah. How about being all of the things? And when I'm able to help somebody do that, yeah.
And this is my last question tonight. What would you most readily die for?
What would I most readily die for? Freedom. Freedom to be, freedom to say. And that goes for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay?
Great.
We cannot make the mistakes of the side that we're not on, with silencing people and shaming people and banishing people for being different or saying or doing or thinking something that we find objectionable. We have to find a way to work through this stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that we have to, as artists, we have to be willing to put ourselves on the line for that. We haven't had to deal with that. But there are artists in Armenia who are in a war zone, right? They're hiding in a basement. And we have to find a way as Americans to realize how very lucky we are and to take full advantage of our freedoms. Because if we don't, and if we don't allow other people who we don't agree with to have that, and if we don't do a fully nuanced taking a part of this together, and we had debate society when I was a kid.
Oh, we do too. Absolutely.
Right? We have to be willing to listen, not go, blah, blah, yeah, you're saying da 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 da, and get ready to say what you're going to say.
Perhaps
we have to do that because Rome will burn. We'll be with our privileged arguments. Frankly, there are people out there in the world trying to make art. They're trying to be gay. Have you seen Hannah Gadsby's Nanette? I highly recommend everybody. She's an Australian comic. She's a lesbian. She grew up in Tasmania, and I did not know this. Up until the 1990s, in Tasmania, it was illegal to be gay. She was beaten. She was raped. She was put through hell, this woman. And she came through it. She's autistic, and she's brilliant, and she's triumphing because she's being true to herself, and she's saying to people, these kinds of things cannot be, but we cannot stand in a place of bickering and deafness and solve these things. And I truly believe that's something worth dying for. And people have died for their right to say something or their right to be something. And we're lucky. We're lucky. And we have to be. It's not just white privilege. We're Americans. Do you know what that means? Do you know what's happening to gay people in Chechnya? Come on, folks. Put your phone down and your followers and stop trying to be liked with your likes. Everybody
Mhm.
wants to be popular.
I
They
know.
don't want to be respected. They don't want to be generous. They don't want to be connected. They want to be right, and they want to be liked. And I just think that is a dangerous path to choose. I went through my life half the time not being liked, not being respected, and people didn't think I had a right to be here. And I didn't get anywhere by standing around shaming people. It wouldn't have worked, and it doesn't work now. If you're hiding behind a keyboard, it may feel like you're doing something, but really you're not.
Mhm.
And the things that you're saying, think about this. Would you say it to their face? Would you say what you're writing to a colleague, a friend, somebody who follows you on Facebook? Would you say those words if they were in front of you? Start having empathy. We are artists. This is number one. We don't do this. I don't care how high you sing. I don't care how well you dance. I don't care how clever you are. We're here to feel each other's pain and each other's joy and each other's sorrow. This is what COVID gave us. If we don't embrace that, what was the point of 600,000 people dying?
Mhm.
And all of this stress that we're under. Yes, we're angry. Yes, we're frustrated. No, you will never do anything about he who must not be named.
Mhm.
You won't. That's why people love him. He gets away with everything. So let it go
Mhm.
and look at what's really going on and what you can do to make people feel safe. Not say, I need a safe space. Make a safe space.
Mhm.
Create that.
Mhm.
Be that. You don't have to know what it's like to be African American. You won't. You don't have to know what it's like to be a woman. You don't have to know what it's like to be trans. You don't have to know. You have to say, I'm standing up for this person. It's not about just being an ally, #ally. It's about saying, these people have a right to be here. And I, for one, am here for them. I stand with them. That's where you put yourself on the line, right?
Mhm.
And John Lewis, to many, may be considered saintly, but the fact was that man got his head bashed in Selma. That man put himself on the line, and then he spent the rest of his life in service, encouraging people to be their best selves with respect and dignity and love for fellow human beings. And that's why he's revered. Okay. So what are we going to do? You know, that's I think worth dying for, because otherwise we're just a bunch of people doing Netflix and chill and chasing our dreams, and that's great. But what about other people? You know, the kids that are coming along, yeah, they're worried about the future and all of those things. So are we. Frankly, you know, George Carlin said, you know, the planet's going to be fine. George Carlin was like, nature's going to be fine. We're going to get decimated. We're going to destroy ourselves, but nature will bounce back. It finds its way back.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not saying it's going to take care of itself. I'm just saying, while we're making camps and declaring ourselves part of this group that has this determination, put your money where your mouth is. Put your phone down. Stop tweeting and retweeting and hashtagging and shaming and sending people to the cornfield. And show up and make someone feel welcome and make someone feel safe and make someone feel. It takes so little. You know this, Richard. This is what you're about. You're about choosing the respectful, you know, encouraging, kind way. And people think it's hokey. It's not hokey. It's actually where things change.
Mhm.
Because if somebody feels like it's okay for me to be here, because one person says, have you seen there's everybody's talking about Jamie?
Yes.
Oh, within 5 minutes, I was like, oh, you know, because that would have been impossible when I was a kid.
Absolutely. I
And
agree.
that girl in the hijab says to him, you be a drag queen.
Ha!
She created space for him.
Yes.
And by doing that, by him seeing her, he gave her a space to be in. Step outside of yourself, put your attention on somebody else.
Absolutely.
Stop demanding what you want.
Absolutely.
About helping someone get what they want. Then magically you're going to get what you want. That's what I think. And you know me, Richard, you've known me forever. Blah, 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 blah. Wind me up and watch me go.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for being here.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I say this at the end of my show, but it's not just a cliche. I'm sure I can speak for James when I say this. You could have been anywhere else for the last hour and a few minutes. But the fact that you chose to spend it with us, I don't take it lightly. So thank you. If this is your first time here, I hope that I want to get rid of the word subscribe. I posted on Facebook. It's a faceless word. You're more than subscribers to me. So I put it out there. I said, what do we call something besides subscribers? And someone said, you're a skipper. Call us your mates. So go and become my mates right here on Richard Skipper Celebrates on YouTube. I even have a button, Richard Skipper's Mates. Click it. And, I'm all about celebrating other artists. Click on it. There are over 320 other videos on this channel. Hopefully there will be 320 more. Check them out. There are 3 simple things you can do to help me out. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and share it. And if you share it, please tag me. And what this will do is it will elevate this video and it will give us a bigger platform and a bigger audience and pay it forward. I always end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the 7th name that pops up, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let that person know what they mean to you. James talked about Jan Maxwell. In a blink of an eye, she was gone. And it stunned all of us in the theater when that happened. It seems like every other post on Facebook and social media these days is a loved one or a pet or someone that we love being gone in a blink of an eye. Our mutual friend, David Friedman, says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure that you bring a skipper along. Now, James, I'm going to leave the screen and I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh my
anything
God.
that you want to say about anything that we talked about tonight that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just a final message that you want to give to everyone who's watching now. Again, happy birthday. Thanks for the gifts that you've given to the world and the gifts that you're going to continue to give to the world. You're going to give that film series, I know. And don't worry about how it's going to end, because as soon as you give the kiss goodbye, I know to end the show. Thank you. And everybody, make it a better tomorrow. Good night.
I guess what I would say is, let's follow Richard's example. Richard, we've known each other a long time. I have great respect for him. And he reached out to me. He knew it was my birthday. He reached out to me and he wanted to let me have a moment and tell my story. And I just think, make a space for somebody else to be seen and to have their story. Everybody's different. We're not tribal. We are individuals, and we all have universal experiences. And just know this, and know that this goes by like that. It could be over in a flash. So what if the last thing you did was to help somebody else feel empowered and seen and welcome and happy and hopeful? That's what I would say. And thank you, Richard, for celebrating all of the people that you admire and for giving us a place to feel safe and to feel seen. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for celebrating my birthday.